You survived things that were not supposed to be survived. Not in the dramatic, cinematic sense of a person who walked away from a visible catastrophe with the evidence of the survival written on their body for anyone to see. In the quieter, more complete, more genuinely devastating sense of someone who moved through seasons that were designed, by circumstance, by the specific configurations of people and pressure and accumulated weight, to produce a particular outcome. The outcome was your diminishment, your dissolution. The particular kind of ending that does not look like an ending from the outside because the body continues and the days continue and the ordinary mechanics of a life keep operating. But that is an ending in every sense that matters because the person who is being formed inside that life stops forming and starts simply surviving in the smallest possible definition of the word. That outcome did not arrive. You are here, not as the residue of something that nearly ended, not as the diminished version of a person who almost became something significant before the seasons intervened, as the full, continuing, forward-moving person who moved through every season that was designed to produce a different result and produced this one instead, the result of someone who is still building, still becoming, still in motion toward the specific thing that their existence was assembled to reach. But I did not call you here to tell you that you survived. You know that. You have known it in the daily, private, completely unannounced way that people know the things that cost them the most to know, the knowing that lives in the body rather than the mind, that does not require articulation because it is simply the felt quality of being present in a life that almost was not present. You know you survived. What you may not fully know, what most people who have survived what you have survived do not fully know, because the knowing requires a vantage point that survival alone does not automatically provide, is why you survived. Why the outcome that was building in those seasons was not the outcome that arrived. Why the specific combination of everything aimed at your ending produced, against the logic of what was assembled against you, a continuation instead. Why you are here rather than the diminished version of here that should have been the result of what was applied to the person you were in those seasons. This is what I want to tell you. Not as comfort, not as the retrospective reconstruction of meaning that humans reach for in the aftermath of difficulty because the alternative, that the difficulty was simply random and the survival was simply luck and neither the cost nor the continuation carry any significance beyond their own bare occurrence, is too empty to live inside of fully. As the actual answer, the true answer, the answer that, when you receive it completely, changes not just how you understand what happened, but how you understand what is happening now and what you are moving toward and what the continuation of your life is for. You are alive because something is not finished, not something you started, something you were sent to start, something that exists in the world in an early, incomplete, not yet fully manifest form that requires your specific presence to reach its completion, not because you are the only person who could theoretically do it, but because you are the specific person who is formed for it through the exact seasons you were given, who carries the exact combination of qualities it requires, who arrived at this exact moment in the world's development with the exact preparation the moment demands. Your survival was not a reprieve. It was a directive. The seasons that were designed to end you were not random. I want to speak about this carefully because the word designed implies a designer, and the implication of a designer in the production of your suffering is not something I will use carelessly or without the full weight of what it means. But the pattern of what was applied to you, the specific sequence of pressures, the particular quality of the difficulty, the exact nature of the formation that the difficulty produced in you, this pattern is too precise to be accidental. What was aimed at ending you is also, in the same motion, building you. Not instead of ending you. Simultaneously with trying to end you. The same pressure that was intended to dissolve you was, in the dissolution attempt, compressing you. The same seasons that were supposed to leave you with nothing were, in the leaving you with nothing, clarifying what was essential. The same encounters that were designed to reduce your understanding of your own worth were, in the reduction attempt, revealing to you the specific location and quality of the worth that could not be reduced. The attack and the formation were not separate events. They were the same event, producing two entirely different outcomes simultaneously: the intended outcome of your diminishment, which failed, and the unintended outcome of your preparation, which succeeded completely. This is the specific nature of a life that is being preserved for something. The difficulty is not incidental to the purpose. It is instrumental to it. The purpose required a person with specific qualities that comfortable seasons do not produce. Qualities that are only available in people who have been through the specific, costly, completely non-optional formation of someone who was tested at the depth their assignment requires and did not break. The difficult seasons were not the obstacle to your purpose. They were the production of it. Let me be more specific about what was being produced, because generality here is a disservice to you and to the truth. What was being produced was your immunity to the primary mechanism by which people who carry what you carry are most commonly neutralized. The mechanism is not dramatic. It does not announce itself as opposition or suppression or the visible, external force of something that knows what you carry and is working to prevent its expression. The mechanism is interior. It works through your own perception of yourself. It works by installing, through the accumulated pressure of seasons that produce doubt, a version of yourself in your own mind that is smaller than what you actually are, a version whose ceiling is the ceiling of what the people and seasons around it confirmed, whose reach is limited to the reach that the environments you move through seem to permit, whose understanding of its own significance is bounded by the understanding that the formative seasons produced. This interior diminishment, this smaller version installed through doubt, is the primary mechanism. Because a person who carries your capacity but who has been successfully convinced of a smaller version of themselves will deploy their capacity in service of the smaller version's estimate of what is possible. Will reach only as far as the smaller version's ceiling. Will offer only as much of what they carry as the smaller version believes is appropriate. Will self-limit in ways that no external force could impose because the limit is not imposed from outside but inhabited from inside. This mechanism works on almost everyone it is applied to. It did not work on you. Not because you were immune from the beginning, you were not. The smaller version was installed. The doubt was real. The seasons of diminishment produced real diminishment in how you moved through the world, real compression in how fully you deployed what you carry, real limitation in the reach you allowed yourself. The mechanism had partial success, but it did not have complete success. Something in you, something that I can only describe as the specific, unkillable quality of a person who is sent with something rather than simply born, kept a private account that the mechanism could not access. Kept a version of knowing that was not subject to the doubt the seasons produced. Kept the original understanding of what you carry in a place that the installed smaller version could not reach and therefore could not diminish. That private account is the source of every moment in the most difficult seasons when you continued anyway. When the logic of the situation said stop and you did not stop. When every available external confirmation said you had already reached the ceiling and you kept building past the ceiling. When the smaller version was the only version the environment was confirming and you acted from something else, something that the environment was not confirming and that did not require the environment's confirmation to remain operative. That something else is the answer to why you are alive. You are alive because that something else needed a body to work through. And yours was the body it was sent into. Let me speak now about the distinction between being alive and being merely continuing, because the two are not the same thing, and the failure to understand the difference is the specific confusion that keeps people who were sent with something from deploying what they were sent with for the full length of the window they were given. Continuing is the biological and mechanical maintenance of existence. It is the heart beating and the lungs breathing and the days producing their sequence of ordinary requirements and the person inside the sequence responding to those requirements with sufficient competence to remain functional. Continuing is what happens when the survival instinct in the basic social contract and the accumulated momentum of a life in motion keep a person present in the world without the full, conscious, directed engagement of a person who knows what they are present for. Most people who have been through what you have been through spend a significant period of their lives in continuing rather than in being alive. This is not a failure. It is the specific, necessary, completely legitimate recovery period of a person whose system was working at maximum capacity for too long, and that requires the relatively low demand state of continuing in order to rebuild what the maximum capacity operation depleted. The continuing is rest. Even when it does not feel like rest. Even when it feels like stagnation or avoidance, or the quiet guilt of someone who knows they are not fully deployed and cannot yet find the way to the deployment. The continuing was rest. You needed the rest. But there is a moment when the rest has completed its work and the continuing is no longer rest but residence, when the low-demand state of existing without full deployment has stopped being recovery and started being the default, and the default has started feeling normal, and the normal has started feeling like maybe this is what it was always going to be, and the something inside that kept the private account and refused the diminishment has gone quieter than it should, because the quieter has started to feel like peace when it is actually the specific, dangerous quiet of a person who is further from their deployment than they have been since the difficult seasons. That quiet is not peace. It is the signal. The signal that the rest is complete and the deployment is overdue, and the people who need what you carry are waiting longer than the waiting was supposed to be, and the work that only you are positioned to do is not being done because the person who is positioned to do it is still in the residence of the continuing rather than in the full, activated, completely awake state of someone who is alive to why they are alive. You are awake now. This is not the quiet. This is the activation. The distinction between continuing and being alive also lives in the quality of what is produced. Continuing produces outputs, the things that life requires to be done and that a person in continuing does competently, because competence does not require full deployment. It requires sufficient engagement. But the outputs of continuing, however competent, carry a specific quality that distinguishes them from the outputs of someone who is fully alive to their why. The quality is the presence of the person inside the output. Where a person is fully deployed, when everything they carry is active and oriented and available, and the work they are doing is the work they were sent to do, what they produce carries the specific, recognizable, completely unmistakable quality of something that was made by someone who is fully present in the making. Not just technically present, not just competently engaged, fully alive inside the work, bringing the complete inheritance of everything they were formed through to the specific task in front of them. This quality is felt before it is named. The people who receive it feel it immediately. Feel the difference between something produced by a person who is fully there and something produced by a person who is sufficiently there. The difference is not always articulable. It is not always located in any specific technical dimension of what was produced. It is the presence itself, the specific density of a fully alive person inside their work, that the recipient feels, and that changes what the work does in them. Your fully alive outputs carry this quality. Your continuing outputs do not. And the people who need what only your fully alive outputs carry have been receiving the continuing versions and sensing, without being able to name it, that something that should be fully present is partially withheld. They need the full version. Only the full version reaches the depth they need to be reached at. This is not a small distinction. This is the difference between work that touches the surface of a person's situation and work that reaches the interior of it. Between transmission that lands in the mind and transmission that lands in the body. Between the impact of something useful and the impact of something that changes the direction of a life. You were sent to change the direction of lives. Not to produce useful content for people who are already moving in approximately the right direction and who needed a minor adjustment. To reach the people who are not moving, who are inside the specific quality of stuck that only comes from the combination of genuine difficulty and the absence of proof that the difficulty is survivable. Who cannot imagine the other side of what they are in because they have never encountered anyone who has been through it and come out carrying what the coming through produces. The proof you carry is the only proof that reaches them. Be fully alive when you bring it. Bring it from the fully alive place, not the continuing place, the alive one. I want to speak now about the specific thing you were sent to do, not in the vague, general language of purpose that sounds meaningful while pointing at nothing in particular. In the specific, practical, grounded language of someone who has watched enough lives to recognize, in the pattern of a particular formation, the outline of a particular assignment. You were sent to make something possible that is not possible without you. Not metaphorically possible in the sense that your presence makes things better in a general, diffuse, hard to measure way. Actually, specifically, concretely possible. There is a thing that exists in the world right now in an incomplete state that requires your specific contribution to reach its completion. There are people whose lives will take a direction they cannot access without encountering what you carry. There are questions that have been circulating in the spaces you move through that only make contact with their answer when they encounter the specific understanding you have developed through the specific seasons you were given. This is not grandiosity. Grandiosity is the claim of significance that exceeds what was actually given. What I am describing is the accurate accounting of what was actually given, which is significant, and which deserves to be described accurately rather than diminished in the service of the false humility that says the only safe version of yourself is the version that does not take up too much space. You were given something significant. The seasons confirmed it not by making things easy but by producing, through the cost of what they required, the specific qualities that significant things require in the people who carry them. If what you were given were not significant, the formation would not have been so extensive. The smaller assignments do not require the longer formations. The assignments that require everything from the person who carries them are the assignments that produce, through the formation process, people who have been through everything. You have been through everything. And the everything you have been through is not background. It is content. It is the specific, lived, embodied knowledge that is the primary material of the work you were sent to do. Let me tell you what I mean. The work you were sent to do is not primarily intellectual, not primarily organizational, not primarily the production of a thing or the building of a structure or the achievement of an outcome that can be measured by the standard metrics of achievement. The work you were sent to do is primarily the transmission of something that cannot be transmitted through documentation or instruction or the organized delivery of information from a position of authority. It can only be transmitted through encounter, through the specific, direct, person-to-person quality of someone who has been through the thing transmitting the understanding of it to someone who is currently inside it. The transmission happens in the contact between the lived knowledge of the person who carries it and the present experience of the person who receives it. It happens in the specific moment when the person who is inside the difficulty encounters someone who is inside the same difficulty and came through it and is carrying the proof of the coming through not as a document or a credential but as the living, present, completely evident quality of their existence. That proof changes things and people that nothing else changes. Not instruction, not inspiration in the general sense. The specific, irreplaceable, cannot be manufactured proof that the thing they are inside of can be survived. That the quality they need to develop to survive it is developable. That the person they will be on the other side of it is real and is worth becoming and is someone who carries something that the inside of the difficulty cannot produce but that the coming through of it always does. You are that proof for specific people. Not all people. Not in the general, universal, applicable to everyone's sense of a message that reaches everyone equally. For specific people, the people whose difficulty corresponds to yours in the specific way that two experiences of the same essential territory correspond even when the surfaces are different. The people who are inside a version of what you were inside, who are carrying a version of what you were carrying, who are trying to find a path through terrain that looks to them like it has no path through it. You are the path through it. Not by leading them, by being the evidence that the path exists. This is why you are alive. not in the abstract sense of a reason that floats above the daily reality of your life without making contact with it. In the daily, present, this morning and tomorrow morning sense of why your continued existence is specifically necessary. The people who need the proof of what you carry are in your proximity right now. Some of them are visible to you. Some of them are not yet fully visible. Some of them will arrive in configurations you do not expect, in moments you did not prepare for, with a quality of need that is unmistakable the moment you encounter it. But before I send you toward them, I want to tell you about the evidence. Because there is evidence. Not the kind of evidence that lives in external documentation or the confirmation of other people's assessment or any of the ordinary forms in which evidence presents itself to people who require it. The kind of evidence that lives in the pattern of what happened to you, in the specific shape of the difficulty itself, which contains, when examined with the right instrument, the outline of the purpose that required it. The right instrument is this question: what did the difficulty produce in you that nothing else could have produced? Not what did it take from you. What did it produce? What specific qualities exist in you now that could not have been installed by any route other than the route you were sent through? What do you know, in the embodied, cellular, completely non-theoretical way of someone who knows something through having lived it rather than through having learned it, that the people who did not go through what you went through do not know and cannot approximate? Sit with that question. The answer is the purpose. Not the purpose described in general terms. The specific, actionable, pointed at something real purpose that was produced by the specific difficulty you were sent through. Every season of the difficulty produced a specific quality. Every quality corresponds to a specific need in the people the purpose is oriented toward. The mapping is precise. The difficulty was not random. The qualities it produced are not random. The people who need those qualities are not random. The whole thing, examined from sufficient altitude, is a single coherent system in which the formation and the purpose in the people who need the purpose are all organized around the same center. You are the center. The difficulty was the production of the center. The purpose is the deployment of what the production produced. This is the evidence that you are alive for something. Not the feeling of it. Not the inspiring belief in it. The structural evidence, the specific, demonstrable, point to it and show your work evidence that the shape of what happened to you corresponds precisely to the shape of what the people who need you need. That the formation was not incidental to the work. That the work was not incidental to the formation. That they are the same thing viewed from different angles of the same truth. You were made for this. The making is the evidence. The evidence is in the pattern. Look at the pattern. You will know them. Not because they will announce the need in a form that is easy to recognize. Because the quality of their need will correspond to the quality of your experience at a depth that bypasses the ordinary social filtering of a person reading the surface of an encounter and produces instead the specific, immediate, "This is what I was sent here for" recognition that is the signal of the work arriving. When it arrives, do not manage it. Do not reach for the professional distance or the careful framing or the managed, appropriate response of someone who is trained to receive other people's difficulty from behind a safe position. The safe position is not what was sent. You were sent. With everything you carry. Including the parts that the difficulty produced and that the professional distance was built to protect from the encounter precisely because those parts are the most useful parts, the parts that actually reach the person who needs to be reached. Deploy what you actually have. Not the managed version. The full version. The version that lived through what it lived through and knows what it knows and has the specific, tested, completely untheoretical understanding of what it means to be inside the thing and what it costs to come through it and what becomes possible on the other side of coming through. That version is the work. Now I want to speak about the relationship between being alive and being awake to why you are alive. Because these are not the same thing, and the difference between them is the difference between a life that fulfills its purpose and a life that carries its purpose's potential that never reaches full deployment. Most people are alive. Fewer are awake to why. Not because the awareness is hidden or difficult to access in principle. Because the awareness, when it arrives in its full form, is demanding. It is demanding in the specific way that real purpose is always demanding, not the comfortable, aspirational demanding of a person who wants to do something significant and is willing to work hard toward it, but the specific, non-negotiable, completely reorganizing demanding of a person who understands that what they are alive for is not optional. That the purpose is not a project they took on that they can set down if the conditions become too difficult. That the commitment to the work is built into the nature of what they are and cannot be separated from it without separating from themselves. This kind of demanding is the reason most people who glimpse their why retreat from the full reception of it. The retreat is not cowardice. It is the natural, human, completely understandable response to the recognition that full reception of the why means full commitment to what the why requires. And what the why requires is everything. Not in the sense of a sacrifice that takes things away. In the sense of a full deployment that leaves nothing in reserve. A life fully given to the thing it was sent to do is a life that does not get to keep a comfortable portion of itself back for the purpose of managing what the full giving might cost. You have been retreating from the full reception. Not all the way. Not in the final, decisive way of a person who made a permanent choice to remain in the managed version of their own life. But enough. In the specific, daily, habitual way of a person who approaches the full understanding of their why and then finds, at a certain depth of the approaching, the specific resistance that the full reception always produces, the weight of what it would mean to know completely, to commit completely, to operate from the full awareness of what you are alive for without the managed distance of someone who understands their purpose and principle but has not yet allowed that understanding to reorganize every aspect of how they live. Today, the retreat ends. Not because the demanding has become less demanding. It has not. Not because the full reception is less costly than it was when the retreat began. It is not. Because something in the accumulation of your seasons has produced a quality of readiness for the full reception that was not present before, a readiness that is not about the absence of the cost but about the development of the capacity to carry the cost without the carrying costing you more than you have available. You have more available now. The formation produced it. Receive the why fully. Let it reorganize what needs to be reorganized. Let it make the claims on your attention and your energy in the direction of your daily building that the full understanding of why you are alive always makes on the person who receives it fully. Let the managed distance collapse into the direct, unmediated, completely committed inhabitation of a person who knows what they were sent for and has finally stopped treating that knowing as information to be held carefully rather than direction to be followed completely. This is the moment. I want to tell you something about what full reception looks like in the days immediately following it, because the temptation after a moment of clarity is to wait for the clarity to organize itself into a plan before moving, and the waiting is almost always the thing that allows the clarity to diffuse back into the ordinary texture of daily life without the reorganization it was producing having time to fully take hold. The clarity does not wait. It is a living thing. It has a specific window of maximum operative force, the period immediately following the moment of full reception when the reorganization it is producing is still actively in motion and the habits and arrangements of the managed version have not yet reasserted their ordinary organizing force. In this window, the clarity can accomplish in days what it would take months to accomplish after the ordinary texture has reasserted itself. Move in the window. Not with the frantic, anxiety-driven motion of someone who is afraid the clarity will disappear. With the deliberate, fully present, completely committed motion of someone who understands that the window is open and that what is built in the window has a quality in a permanence that what is built outside it does not. Make the decision that the clarity is pointing toward. Have the conversation that the managed version has been postponing. Take the step that the full reception of a why makes both possible and necessary. Do the thing you have known you were supposed to do and have been finding reasons not to do that were really the managed version's way of staying in the managed version. The managed version is no longer appropriate to what you are. It was appropriate once. The managed version was the correct response to seasons that were not safe for the full expression of what you carry. But the seasons have changed. The landscape has changed. The specific configuration of this moment, your formation, your position, the people in your proximity, the opening that the previous seasons produced by closing what needed to be closed. This configuration is not the configuration that produced the managed version, and it is not the configuration that requires it. What this configuration requires is you. Unmanaged, fully present, operating from the complete understanding of why you are alive and what that why demands and where the work is and who needs the proof you carry and what it costs to provide it and why the cost is worth the paying. Let me speak now about the people you are going to reach. Not the people you are already reaching. Not the people who are already in your proximity and already receiving what you carry in the forms you are already providing. The people you are not yet reaching. The ones who are in their most difficult seasons right now, in the versions of what you were in before the formation was complete, who do not yet know that what they are inside of is survivable and formative and not the ending it feels like. They are waiting, not passively, not in the comfortable waiting of people who have been told that help is on the way and are resting in the assurance of its arrival. In the specific, exhausted, increasingly desperate waiting of people who are not sure it is coming, who have been inside the difficulty long enough that the possibility of a different quality of existence is becoming theoretical in a way that makes the daily survival more expensive with every season that passes. Every day you operate below the full deployment of why you are alive is a day those people wait longer. I am not saying this to produce guilt. Guilt is a compression tool, not a deployment tool. And a person who moves from guilt does not move with the full, clean, completely oriented force of a person who moves from understanding. I am saying it because it is true, and because you are the kind of person who, when the truth is spoken clearly and completely and without the softening that makes it easier to hear but harder to act on, acts on it. The truth is that what you carry was given to you at a cost that was not yours to pay alone. The people who came before you in the line paid a portion of that cost. The seasons that formed you paid a portion. The specific encounters with the specific people and pressures and accumulated difficulties that produced the formation paid a portion. The cost was distributed across everything that produced you. The return on that cost is the deployment. The deployment is the reaching of the people who need what the cost produced. You are the return. Be the return fully. Every quality that the cost produced, every depth of understanding, every tested capacity, every piece of embodied knowledge that lives in the body rather than the mind because it was learned through the body and not through instruction. This is the currency of the return. This is what was purchased by everything that was paid. And currency that sits in reserve produces nothing for anyone. Spend it on the people who need it. On the work that only you are positioned to do. On the specific, irreplaceable, completely non-substitutable contribution that your presence in the world at this moment in this configuration makes possible. This is why you are alive. Not to eventually get to the work when the conditions are right. The conditions are right. Not to begin the full deployment when the managed version has been safely retired and the transition has been smoothly managed. The managed version retires by being superseded, not by being carefully wound down. Not to start becoming what you were sent to be when the remaining obstacles have been cleared. You clear the obstacles by being what you were sent to be. The obstacles do not clear first. The being clears them. You are alive to do this. To be this. To transmit, through the direct, unmediated, full deployment quality of your presence in the world, The specific thing that the world needs from the specific person who was formed for this specific moment and sent with this specific combination and kept alive through every season that was designed to prevent the arrival at this specific now. The now is here. You are here. Everything that was paid to produce this moment was paid. Everything that was built through the cost of the seasons is built. Everything that needed to be formed in you before the full deployment was possible is formed. The why is not ahead of you. It is not the thing you are still moving toward. It is the thing you are. The thing you have always been. The thing that every season of difficulty was producing more fully and more precisely in you with every pressure it applied and every limit it tested and every moment it required you to continue when continuation felt impossible. You continued. This is why. This moment. This work. These people. This specific, irreplaceable, completely authorized deployment of a person who is formed for exactly this and who is alive for exactly this and who has been moving toward exactly this since the first moment that the something inside them that could not be diminished refused the diminishment that was offered. It refused for this. You survived for this. You are alive for this. Begin.